Hi, this video is for Greek class. This video goes along with Croy, your textbook, chapter 3, and so you might want to grab your textbook and just follow along as I describe what's going on. You can read it for yourself as well, but this might just kind of walk you through it. I also have a note here which says we are taking those definite articles from chapter 5 and going ahead and using them in chapter 3. I'll talk about what that means in a minute, but you want to go ahead and star the chapter 5 definite articles. You want to put a flag there, whatever you need to do, because they're going to be the most consistent thing, and if you learn them, that's probably the easiest and fastest way to learn about nouns in Greek. Okay, when it comes to nouns, here's the quick review, which is Greek nouns contain these three things. They contain gender. All of them have an aspect of them that is masculine, feminine, or neuter. All of them are either singular or plural, and all of them have case. And we're going to find out that the ending is what tells us all those things, the ending of a word. Why do we need to learn the different cases, which is actually really the important thing that I tried to pitch in the introduction to Greek nouns video? It's because in English, word order is the most important thing. And so we can tell what a person or what a noun is doing in the subject, in the sentence, based on its order. So if I say Paul kicks the ball, usually I know Paul is a subject because Paul comes first. But if I say I kick Paul, I'm the subject, and who am I kicking? I'm kicking Paul. And we rely a lot on word order. But in Greek, they can put the words in any order, and actually moving words around changes their significance, and they play with that a lot, especially in poetic texts. And so we're going to have to really pay attention to the cases, because that tells you which one is the subject of the different nouns that are there. And so it becomes really important. If there's one thing you should start with focusing on, it's the nominative case, the subject. And so really focus there, because in Greek, the word order does not matter. The function of a noun in a sentence is determined by a noun's case. Okay, nominative cases are the most important ones because they're the subject. And so if there's one thing that you need to start with, is start by paying attention to the nominatives. Here are some nominative case examples. It goes like this. The sister sees the heart. Hei adelphe, blepe, tein, kardian. The sister sees the heart. Sister is in the nominative, and that you can find in your textbook. And because it's in the nominative, we know that it's the subject. But this sentence also says the exact same thing. It's the same words. Look at it for just a moment. If you need to pause it, you can. Blepe, you see that as up above. Hei adelphe, tein, kardian. But the hei adelphe is exactly the same, so the translation is still the sister sees the heart. Here's another one. These are actually still the same words. Tein, kardian. Blepe, hei adelphe. The subject is now at the very end. Hei adelphe. It still means the same thing. The sister sees the heart. I'm trying to really emphasize to you why it's important to learn the cases, especially this nominative case, the subject case, because that helps you figure out what the sentence is, and you will translate the sentence wrong if you're just trying to work from left to right. That's not how this language works at all. This language relies on the cases. Okay. Note, tein kardian is always in the accusative. No matter its location in the sentence, it always functions as the direct object in this case. Okay, these are the 5 cases. Nominative, which is like subject. Genitive, which shows possession. Dative, which we're going to call the indirect object. Accusative, which is the direct object. And vocative, which is direct address, like speaking to someone. Okay, here's the great thing, is that in Greek, it is the definite article that will always be the same. It will always tell you gender. It will always tell you singular or plural. It will always tell you the case. So you want to learn these. This is the most important thing to learn from this section. This is actually in chapter 5, but we're pulling it ahead to chapter 3 so that we can see it all at once. And this is how it works. In the nominative, so as the subject, you have a hei. That's what's going to mark your subject as singular. In the genitive, you're going to have teis. In the dative, you're going to have te. In the accusative, you have tein. In the plural, you have hai. As the nominative, that's the subject. That's the one to pay most attention to. In the genitive, you have tone, which is great because that's going to be true in every gender. You have in the dative, tais. And in the accusative, you have tas. We'll talk about these more in class because there's some things that can help you with them a little bit. Like if you take a look at these for just a moment, hei and hai that are at the top, and I'm saying those because they have a rough breathing mark over them. Those are the nominatives. That's the subject, singular and plural, and that's the one you just need to learn. But tone, which is the plural genitive, is going to be the same in every gender, so that's going to be an easy one for you to recognize. If you look at the datives, datives almost always have an I in them, just like the word dative does. And so te, that iota, is underneath the eta. So look under the tau eta, and then a little, do you see that little line? That's an iota. And then tis also has an iota. And then you kind of have to learn the accusative as well. But this would be the thing I would focus on if I was choosing to learn something. Focus on learning the definite article. Okay, and the vocative doesn't have a definite article, so we'll deal with the vocative a little bit later. In the first declension Greek nouns, then, gender is typically feminine, but there are 3 different ways that the nouns can look, but the definite article is going to always be the same. So that's why the thing I just showed you is the most important thing to do. And I would actually take it and copy it in. I would take it from chapter 5 and copy it into chapter 3. I went ahead and did that on, for me, it's page 14, but it's number 18, paragraph 18. And I put it right in front of these nouns so that you can see it. Here's the 3 different forms. We call them pure alpha, pure eta, and mixed. I'll show you what they look like. I'm going to start with the pure eta. Phone, which means voice or sound, and it's one of your vocab words for this time, can be in the nominative, hey phone, but it can also be changed to the genitive, tes phones, te phone, tain phonane, phone. Hi phonai, tone phonon, tis phonais, tas phonas, phonai. These are them. It seems like a lot, but it really is not, because look how the endings match the definite article. If you've learned the definite article, then you know the pure etas. We also, though, have these in Greek, which is we have some that end in alpha, but it's still an A sound. So a, they're all in the same vowel sound. And so these ones still go with those feminine articles. So your hey, ho, ra, just means that in the singular, all the things that used to have an eta now have an alpha. But other than that, they're the same. Tes horas, te hora, tain horan, hora, hi horai, ton horon, tis horais, tas horas, horai. It actually, although it looks like a lot, is the exact same thing that you saw in the pure eta. And look at the definite article. The definite article is the same no matter what. So that's the thing that I would focus on if I were you. This word means hour or time, and then focus on the nominative, the subject form, and then focus on those definite articles, and you'll be able to figure out what case you're in and what function it's doing in the sentence. All right, this is them, so you can see them. Basically, they actually are the same thing. And so when they're side by side, you're like, okay, this isn't so much. If you learn the definite article, then you're going to be able to recognize the endings of all the pure etas. And then the pure alphas just have an alpha instead of an eta. There is yet one more grouping to this in our first declension nouns, which is we have what we call mixed. And it just means that you go back and forth between the alpha and the eta. So the nominative and the accusative have an alpha, genitive and the dative have an eta, but they still are very much the same thing as what you've seen so far, because they're all on an A class vowel. So this is them then side by side, which might help you out. Do you see how the endings there? Those are the only ones that have alphas. Everything else is the same as the definite article. And so if you learn the definite article, you should know the ending and you should be able to recognize them. They also will typically have the definite article with them. I would say 90% of the time, maybe even 95% of the time. Most nouns have a definite article with them. So that's why I'm saying that's the most important thing. Maybe grab it from chapter 5 and just write it in chapter 3 under paragraph 18, right next to the nouns, so that you can just keep this first line, the article line, with the nouns themselves. When it comes to alphas and mix, pure alphas and mix, because they both start with a vocabulary word that you got with an alpha at the end, the question that I sometimes get asked is, how do you tell the difference? And I have to credit this to Ross Wagner, who's this great linguist and Greek teacher. And he uses what he calls the old McDonald rule to find pure alphas. Pure alphas means the next to last letter of the word comes in either an epsilon, an iota, or a rho. It has to be one of those 3 letters. And so he calls it the EI rho rule. Okay, so you look at the next to last letter, and if it is an epsilon, an iota, or a rho, then it's a pure alpha. So this will help you see them. Pure alphas versus mixed, based on the EI rho rule. Letheia, the next to last letter is iota. So that would be a pure alpha. You'd have alphas all the way through the singular. Same would be true for basileia. You'd have it all the way through. Same thing for ecclesia. Hemera, it has alphas all the way through, but the lassa is mixed. So it's going to go alpha, eta, eta, alpha. you'll get used to it. You also aren't writing in Greek, you're just recognizing it. And so if you know the definite article, you may not even need to know which ones are alphas and which ones are mixed. You're going to be able to get a long way with just being able to recognize them as is. This is the form of then the first declension nouns. And again, if there's one thing I would focus on, it would be the definite article. Hey, taste, tay, tain, high, tone, tice, toss. And then the second most thing I would focus on is just looking at the nouns. And the nouns, the nominative subject line ought to follow that pretty well. So hey, phone, but it's also hey, hora, the hour. Hey, doxa, the glory. Hi, phonai, the sounds. Hi, horai, the hours. Hi, doxai, the glories, the honors, something like that. That one might be a little bit more rare to have in the plural form. But these are them. And if you focus on the definite article, that's your first most important thing to focus on. And if you focus secondly on the subject line, the nominatives, you're going to be able to get the majority of your translations. Like that gives you the best start possible. And then the stuff about periods, pure alphas, mixed, if you have time to figure that out, great. If not, it's going to be already correct for you because you're just reading and translating back to English. You're not creating sentences in Greek. This gives you the form of them. There's a separate video that actually talks through how do you translate these things. And so I encourage you to watch that video as well. This is also a short video. They're all short videos so that you can watch them another time or 2 times along with the textbook. We can also talk about it in class. After you watch the video a couple times, if you still have questions, either feel free to email me or bring it to class. And I look forward to talking with you more about this. Great.